Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to the Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks crossover, as we do every Monday, as I casually call it, Mondays with Millard. Who am I, Mitch Album? Ladies and gentlemen, every Monday, your pal Sully, that's me. I'm Paul Francis Sullivan. I'm normally the host of Locked On MLB. This Bajakalup right over there, that's Millard Thomas. He's normally the host of Locked On Diamondbacks. We get together to go over the weekend's games, see with the state of baseball, and inevitably yap about something we didn't plan about. This show, as you hear my dog just outside, is being dropped on the 20th day of June, 2022, and that's not insignificant. I'll tell you why in just a moment. And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods, same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Hey, Millard Thomas, if people are making Locked On MLB their first listen, then their second listen should be Locked On Diamondbacks. Tell people where they can find that.
At Creator Thomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle.
Okay, well, we're going to go right off the bat here and talk about what turned out to be kind of a significant game involving, drum roll, everybody, the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Hey.
And hey, you got Christian Walker's got some big power. Someone by the name of Buddy Kennedy. Christian Walker homered twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah. Big game.
Peyton Smith homered. Buddy Kennedy. I wouldn't recognize Buddy Kennedy if he came in wearing a T-shirt saying, "Hello, my name is Buddy Kennedy." But Kennedy's hit a big slam today against the Minnesota Twins. And look at no one's saying the Diamondbacks are going to party like it's 2001 or even 1999 for that matter. But the Diamondbacks are not a pushover team. They're only 4 games under 500. And despite having kind of a rough couple of weeks, the last couple of weeks, they have won a couple of quality games, including winning this series against the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, it was a nice little series for the D-backs who, like you said, have been struggling against these mediocre teams with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Cincinnati Reds, really the whole NL Central, the Chicago Cubs too, have been giving D-backs trouble this year. But against the Twins, the D-backs finally stepped up. We saw Madison Bumgarner on Friday had some great pitching. Merrill Kelly today had some great pitching. Now, we did see Luke Weaver have his first start of the season on Saturday, and it was just more bad Luke Weaver. And now you're like, what do I do with that guy? You look at Paul Goldschmidt, what he's doing for the Cardinals right now, and you see Carson Kelly and Luke Weaver, you're like, man, that's a serious regret right there. But the D-backs had a great weekend. Christian Walker, just the perfect microcosm of the season for him on Sunday because he had the 2 solo shots, like you mentioned, but first and third, nobody out. He strikes out in Sunday's game. So Christian Walker, big time power bat this season. He's like top 5 in baseball in home runs, but runners in scoring position, he can't do it. He used to be the backup first baseman for Chris Davis in Baltimore, and he's basically turned into Chris Davis. A lot of home runs, but in terms of when you actually need him to come through a runners in scoring position, he doesn't do it too often. So the D-backs had a big spoiler weekend against the Twins, a team where you don't really see too often because of the interleague play there in the American League. But I had a really fun weekend and a really fun time because going into Sunday's game, the D-backs were 1-1 with the Twins. I didn't know if they were going to continue to struggle like they've been doing recently, but they stepped up to the plate and they took down Minnesota. Thank you, D-backs. And thank you, Buddy Kennedy, who had a great weekend and a grand salami on Sunday.
Yeah, tell people about who Buddy Kennedy is. I'm loving me some Buddy Kennedy.
Yeah, maybe I buried the lead there by not talking about Buddy Kennedy. But he's just been a dude that's just been in the minor leagues, and he was never really rated as like a top prospect for the D-backs, even though when you look at his numbers, it's kind of like Seth Beerish. You're like, this guy's batting 290 with a 900 OPS, 20-plus home runs in the minor leagues. Like, why does he not have more acclaim? And as soon as he's called up, he starts to put in work immediately. On Friday's game, he's got his whole family in the stands. His grandpa's on the broadcast. And what does he do with grandpapa on the broadcast? Buddy Kennedy gets his first major league hit. Today, he got his first major league home run with the bases loaded. He had a triple on Saturday. He has a hit and a run scored in every game this series. Buddy Kennedy has been the juice and the energy the D-backs have needed because, like we keep saying, they have been struggling against bad teams the last 2 weeks, and Buddy Kennedy injected the life that the D-backs desperately needed this weekend.
He is. I'll just say it. He is the second best player in baseball from Millville, New Jersey. The second
Okay.
best.
Yeah, we know who the first best. I know who the first best.
First best is Mike Trout. We're going to get to Mike Trout in a second because he had a weekend too. Hey, for graduates of Millville, New Jersey, this was quite a weekend. But yeah, I mean, first of all, he's come up. He's only 23 years old. He's played 3 or 4 more games in the major leagues more than I have. Mm-hmm. But he has given the team a little bit of a spark, and it's important for teams like the Diamondbacks who are building up. They had a dreadful 2021, and they're playing in a division where there are 3 very good teams in this division, but they're holding their own to a degree. They are not. There are a slew of teams who are on pace to lose 100 games. I mean, we're going to talk about the Pirate game because it was a great story happening in the Pirate game today. But the Pirates have lost. I think it's 12 of their last 13 games, or 12 of their last 14 games. It's something ridiculous like that, and they're in 3rd place. That's the 3rd place Pittsburgh Pirates, because 3 teams in that division are minor league teams. So you see, despite the fact that, the Goldschmidt trade does not look like it's going to work out, and any images of Aston dancing in your head for Luke Weaver might be gone. Maybe he could transition to the pen. Maybe, I mean, look at, you wanted him to be the next Adam Wainwright, but if you could get the next, Jesus, I don't know, who's a decent middle?
I was thinking maybe like Nefalti Feliz back with the Rangers.
Neftalí Feliz, or the way it was Jeremy Affeldt. Jeremy Affeldt was with the Giants all those years. Hey, you know what? You could do worse than having a player like that. And do you what? I know there's been a lot of chatter of whether or not Madison Bumgarner is on the trade block or not. Mm-hmm. I'd rather they keep him. First of all, Bumgarner doesn't have anything to prove in the postseason. He's obviously, in the 2010s, he put together one of the great postseason runs in baseball history. But also, you know what? If you're trying to put together something and be somewhat halfway decent on the field, keep your former World Series ace and see where it goes.
I'm just Bumgarner at $20 million a year over the next couple of years. I'd rather just move off of him and put some young guy there or someone else. If he was, a little bit better, or maybe if that contract was a little bit cheaper, I would agree with you. But because he's been so good so far this season, and I really think it's because of the Brent Strom effect. As soon as Madison Bumgarner is not with Brent Strom, I think he's going to go back to looking like how he looked the first couple years in Arizona, where he really wasn't a very good pitcher at all. So I would trade him right now while he's still good, while he's at the top of his game, while he is, with those rose-colored lenses of the Brent Strom effect, and trade him while his value is at the highest peak.
And get good value from, like you got for Goldschmidt. Is that what you're saying? How's that working out?
Hey, I don't. Okay, but you think if Bumgarner gets traded, he's gonna all of a sudden enter the Cy Young conversation? Because Goldschmidt's looking like, I mean, leaving Arizona.
It's probably gonna happen. We'll inevitably be traded to St. Louis and throw back-to-back no hitters. With the effect that had, other than keeping, sort of serving notice for contending teams. I'm sure when Minnesota looked at the schedule, saw Arizona was coming up, they thought maybe that was, they're going to win 2 out of 3, and they didn't. And the interesting thing is that there's a team that is coming at the Minnesota Twins full steam ahead. And everyone thought it was going to be the Chicago White Sox this year. And lo and behold, who's only 1 game back of the Minnesota Twins in an extraordinarily winnable division? It's not the White Sox. The White Sox are still sub 500 at that point. What's in a name? The Guardians. Ooh. The Guardians are on an absolute roll. In fact, let's just go back for a second here. I'm going to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth.
I'm there right now.
On May 29th, May 29, okay, less than a month ago, the Guardians were 5 games under 500. They just lost the series to the Detroit Tigers, who, mind you, are not good. Mm-mm. And they lost that 2-1, and the Guardians fell to 5 games under, floating around there. Also a sub 500 at that time were the Boston Red Sox and the Atlanta Braves. But I digress. Since that day, the only one team in the American, actually only two teams in baseball have had a better winning percentage, and one of those teams is not the Atlanta Braves, who went on that incredible winning streak. Only the Yankees, who are 16-1 since then, that's a whole other thing.
Wow.
And the Phillies, who I bet you didn't realize this, are 15-4. I guess
Whoa.
firing Joe Girardi wasn't the worst thing to happen to that team. Cleveland have won 15 of their next 19 games. And they are doing so with everyone thought Cleveland was going to pitch well, and they have pitched very, very well. Quantrill's done well, Bieber's done well, McKenzie's done well. Their bullpen has been absolutely unhittable. But they're getting an MVP caliber season from Jose Ramirez, whose MVP candidacy is increased by the fact that he's leading that offense, and right now they're in a playoff position. But, they're getting some decent at-bats from other players, including Andres Jimenez, who was part of the Francisco Lindor trade. But look at this. This may yet be, dare I call it an Indian summer? No. Dare I call it a Guardian summer?
Yeah.
But the Guardians have dusted themselves off and are saying thank you very much, Arizona Diamondbacks. And, I'm going to be covering this more closely on Tuesday's show. But those two teams are going to face off in, this week. So what do you think about the fact that the American League Central might be a dogfight and the Chicago White Sox are on the outside looking in?
Yeah, early battle for the division coming up with those two teams matching up. But do you think, I don't know, how do you feel about this division in general, though, as maybe being World Series contenders? Because even though the Guardians are playing well and the Twins are playing well, I just don't look at them as potential real World Series contenders or anything like that. I think they're still very good, feel good stories. I'll let you jump in real quick. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're better than, I don't think the Guardians or the Twins are better than the Yankees, who are playing at a completely different level. I don't think they're better than the Astros. Over 162 games, I don't think it's a comparison. But What if one gets hot in a division series? What if one pitching set? How do you beat a team like the Yankees or like Houston? You throw a pitching staff at them that flummoxes them. That's what happened last year when Atlanta defeated Houston. Houston scored at will against Chicago and Boston. And then they couldn't hit that bullpen. Cleveland has the kind of bullpen, the way that Atlanta had last year, the way that the Kansas City Royals had in 2015, that if you're behind in the 6th or 7th, call home, get the Uber. You're not scoring off of them. And they will scratch and claw enough runs to be able to make it work. Would I favor Cleveland over, say, New York or Houston or even Tampa Bay or Toronto? Not necessarily, but the ingredients for an upset, especially for a team that has nothing to lose, in a short series, I think it would be a lot harder to beat a team like New York or Houston in a best of 7. But in a best of 5, you win one of the first 2 games, then you win one game at home, and you've set up a one game do or die. Yeah, with probably a superior pitching staff. I look at Cleveland is a very interesting team if they make it to the postseason, if their pitching staff remains this solid. And again, I'm not necessarily saying they should be favored, but any team whose strength is pitching like that has to be given at least a puncher's chance.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish their success by only looking at them through the prism of can they win the World Series or not, because I still think they're having a successful season. They've been playing, over the expectations I had for them coming into the year. And like you said, their rotation is pretty good. Shane Bieber is a beast. Their back end of the bullpen is pretty nasty as well. I just feel like their offense has a ceiling on it once you get to the postseason, just because I don't think you're going to be pitching to Jose Ramirez as much when you get to the postseason, and you're going to try and make those other guys beat you. But Jose Ramirez, I mean, you make the MVP case for him. I think one of the most underrated aspects of his game is he currently has 11 stolen bases. This is like one of the thickest boys in baseball, and the fact that he just consistently swipes 20 to 30 bags a year. Like, I don't know how he moves so quickly with that body frame, but it's absolutely phenomenal. But I just don't like this division in general. I just think it's more of a feel-good division than anything, and I think they will be competitive, and once we get to the postseason, they will probably knock out one of these teams that we think are better than, the Twins or the Guardians. But I just can't see those teams win the World Series right now, but they could change my expectations. And maybe they make some trade deadline deals where the Guardians try to add some pieces to that lineup or whatever. But I think overall, this division is more about how they're overperforming in terms of their expectations and just having a feel good season overall, and just building that foundation to maybe making a World Series over the next few years.
Well, there's another thing you have to keep into account is health. And there's a possibility that when you have a veteran team like Houston, or maybe a veteran team like New York, that maybe, just maybe, their health may be nubbed down a little bit, and they wouldn't be quite as not at full strength. I don't think the Dodgers were at full strength last year when they played Atlanta. Certainly Kershaw wasn't pitching. And you got to stay healthy. And not just baseball teams. We all got to stay healthy. And Miller Thomas, what do you do to stay healthy?
Oh, man, Sully, I take this thing every morning to start my day that gives me a boost of energy I need to keep going. It's called Athletic Greens. So what is AG1? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. So why do I love AG1? Well, it's lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it covers every kind of lifestyle. It costs you less than $3 a day, and it has over 7,000 5-star reviews, so it's reputable. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
All right, we're here doing our Monday crossover with Miller Thomas of the Locked On Diamondbacks. I'm your pal Sully of Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Hey, we mentioned your boy, Buddy Kennedy.
My guy.
Now, there's another player we alluded to from that part of the country. That would be Mr. Michael Trout, who hit 5 home runs in 5 games, and 2 of them were the go-ahead shots that put the Angels ahead for good. I don't know if you're aware of that, but Michael Trout is good at baseball. He's very good at baseball. And you know what? He leads the league in OPS right now. He already has 21 homers. And let's just take a look at one thing right here. Not counting today's game, which, by the way, he homered today as well. Yeah. Today meaning Sunday. His last 14 days, he has 7 home runs in his last. It was actually 8 home runs in his last 14 games. Going into today, his last 14 games, he batted .351 with an OPS of 1.515. He is having one of his best seasons ever, and this is coming from a guy who's already going to the Hall of Fame. He already has his highest home run total since 2019. Okay. Now, granted, one of them, one year he only played 36 games last year, and the 2020 season was the COVID year. But still, 20 home runs ain't bad. And again, it's gut punch time, because once again, it's on a wasted season.
Yeah. You know? It could be. We'll still see if the Angels can turn it around, because at one point they were competitive in the playoff mix, and they're 9 games back right now. Their division leader, Houston Astros, but they're still not too far back in the wild card race if they're able to turn around. I mean, they're 3 games back of 500, so they're not totally out of it just yet. And Mike Trout, like you said, I mean, I don't know how many words we can use to describe him, because, I mean, of course, everyone already gives him his flowers and already considers him one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and he's having another one of those seasons. And there was some doubt, some question marks heading into this season, just because he's been kind of injured the last 2 years. So there's been some question marks as to whether maybe Mike Trout's starting to be in the decline of his career because he is entering his early 30s. And maybe he's just on the back nine of his career because we saw Albert Pujols, those first 10 years with St. Louis, one of the greatest first 10 years ever all time. And then the next 10 years, he really started to hit the decline and just was not the same player as opposed to those first 10 years. So maybe Mike Trout was going to enter the similar arc of his career. And it hasn't happened just yet because so far this season for Mike Trout is off to one of the best seasons of all time for his own career standards. And he's looking dominant once again. And if the Yankees weren't as good as they are, and if Judge wasn't leading the league in home runs already, Mike Trout might be number one in that MVP conversation. And he's going to be. I mean, the American League MVP race right now with Judge, Jose Ramirez that we've talked about, and Mike Trout, like, it's going to be loaded. And you also can't forget about Shohei Ohtani because even though he doesn't seem to have as much, claim or star power as he did last year, I think we're going to look up at the end of the season and be like, man, Ohtani still had a 260 average, but 900 OPS, 25 to 30 home runs, 25 stolen bases, and he's still going to be the best pitcher on his Angels team. So I think this MVP race in the American League is going to be a blast, and Mike Trout could end up taking home his fifth MVP award, which is just insane.
Now I'm going to bring up a game.
Okay.
And this is one of those turning point games because it involves another center fielder who's in the news this week. In game 2 of the 2014 division series between Kansas City and the Angels, Mike Trout came up to lead off the bottom of the 9th against Jason Frazier of Kansas City. And if Mike Trout had homered against Jason Frazier, it would have been a walk-off home run. The Angels would have won the game, and that would have been the first postseason signature moment of Mike Trout's career. He popped up to the catcher. Pujols and Howie Kendrick also popped up. The game was scoreless was tied going to the 11th, and with one on and nobody out, Lorenzo Cain singled and then came around and scored on Eric Hosmer's home run. And it was Cain who sparked the game-winning rally, not Mike Trout. And the next year, and he was the ALCS MVP that year when the Royals went to the World Series. And the next year, scored from first on what was essentially a bloop single, or I guess it was a double, that was the go-ahead run in the pennant clincher. And Lorenzo Cain had his signature postseason moment when we're celebrating his career. They show that mad dash from first base to score the go-ahead run, what was the pennant clincher, and ultimately the Royals went on to win the World Series against the Mets. Cain was DFA'd this week as he's been slumping badly for the Milwaukee Brewers. But good on the Milwaukee Brewers for waiting until Cain passed the 10-year threshold of his career, therefore making him eligible for pensions and all sorts of other things. This was a guy who twice made it to the MVP top 10 vote, ALCS MVP, Gold Glove winner, part of the Royals team that went to back-to-back World Series, winning the World Series in 2015. And if this is the end of his career, then that's a wonderful career. He checked as many things off as you'd want to have on your proverbial bucket list as a Major League Baseball player. But I think about the difference between Trout and Cain. Obviously, Trout is 1,000 times a better player than Cain. But we look back, and Cain has a couple of moments when we look at his highlight reel of those October moments. And, it's a shame that Trout hasn't had many opportunities. But one of the few opportunities he did have was a game that Cain came through and not Trout. Again, I'm not comparing the two. The one's better. That obviously Trout has had the better career, but the legend of a player like Trout is based upon how they do in the big moments, and it's not Trout's fault that the Angels stink, and they continue to stink. But if he homered off of Jason Frazier, not even Wade Davis or Greg Holland, Jason Frazier, not a bad pitcher, but if he had homered off of Jason Frazier, that would be your Mike Trout moment that I'm missing in his career.
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe when talking about the Mike Trout legacy and story arc. It's just the fact that he doesn't have any postseason moments. And we've talked about this on nauseam on this podcast, my own podcast, because I'm the quote unquote Mike Trout troll. But it's just because I want to see that big postseason moment, or it doesn't have to be a big postseason moment. I want to see something from him on the postseason stage. And like we've talked about it, it's not all his fault because you can only do so much as a one-man crew. He's done everything, from an offensive and defensive standpoint as a player. But I want to see what he is with his back against the wall in the biggest pressurized moments, because I can't just assume Mike Trout, the great player in the regular season, that translates to the postseason. I can't just assume that great player we see for 162 games is going to be the same great player in the postseason, because we do have the Clayton Kershaws of the world, who is one of the greatest pitchers of all time in the regular season, and then stunk it up repeatedly in the postseason to a point where he's a guy who you just couldn't trust in the big games once you got to the postseason. And this is the guy who is one of the all-timers in the regular season. So I can't just say, yeah, Mike Trout's the greatest player of all time just because of what he does in the regular season. I got to see something from him in the postseason. Like we said, it's not all his fault, but thankfully, even at the age of 30, 31, whatever Mike Trout is, he's showing he's still got a lot left in the tank. He's still an MVP caliber player. He's still arguably the best player in baseball. So I still think we got a lot more time, Mike Trout. I still think we got a few more years, but I do want to see him do something on the postseason stage, because if we look up at the end of the day, 20 years into Mike Trout's career, he has the best offensive statistics all time in the regular season, but maybe 1 to 3 postseason hits. I'm going to look back and say, yeah, great player, but kind of a disappointing career.
Wow. Tough crowd. By the way, I must make a little bit of an apology to Jason Frazier, who at the time was a 36-year-old journeyman for Kansas City. But in his he played parts of 2 different seasons with Kansas City, and in 49 games, he did pitch to a 1.54 ERA. He was an effective pitcher out of the bullpen for Kansas City. So obviously, if you make it to the major leagues, you're a tremendous player. He's obviously had a good year that year. I'm just saying, a 36-year-old journeyman reliever, it's not like he was staring down Mariano Rivera in his prime. Millard, another good crossover. Tell people where they can follow your show.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, my personal account, at CreatorsThomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram. Just type in that little search bar, sir. You can find it.
And me, I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. This particular podcast, we're at Locked On MLB Pods on both Twitter and on Instagram. Hey, it's the 20th day of June. Hope you had a great weekend. And it looks like we're going into late June, and we're going to see some of these pennant races start to make sense. What happens when it turns to July? You've got one more month to make the big trades and figure out what kind of contender you have. We're in the middle third of the baseball season. This has been the Locked On crossover with Locked On MLB and Locked On Diamondbacks. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Call me Sully. That's Millard Thomas. Don't call him Sully. Call him a fist pumper right there, right there.